Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at supermicrocomputer. It is time for another update, and on this chart we are still tracking the possibility of an impulse that would be forming here to the upside. And so far, we have here a series of possible 1-2 setups, then a larger 1-2 in this area, and now we are tracking the larger third wave that would develop to the upside. And within this wave 3, we are looking at this as an initial wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, a third wave up, fourth wave, this is possibly still ongoing, and then we are looking to form an additional wave 5 to the upside. At least we do have a scenario in which we can actually see a couple of additional 4 or 5 patterns before we consider this third wave complete. But regardless, we are looking now at support in the area between the $43.5 level all the way down to the $14 level, and this is for the impulse idea to be sustained, to still be kept alive. Now internally within this wave 4 we have been tracking a couple of different patterns that they are still the same patterns from the beginning, basically, where we had an initial movement to the downside that could be really the bottom of the wave 4, but there is also a high risk that it might just be an A wave down, and that this wave 4 could still be ongoing, and that is mostly based on the fact that we failed to create a clear 5-wave structure to the upside. All we have is what could be more likely a correction. Now I'm not completely discarding the possibility of this being a 1-2 1-2. I am keeping this in the back of my mind, but it is not necessarily a very high probability interpretation. Overall, this chart is quite hard to read. It isn't a chart that lets its intentions known, and that is why we are also tracking a few different scenarios in this area. So in the orange scenario, we are looking at a B wave that could have topped here, and then a C wave that could be unfolding even at this point. Now keep in mind, this correction doesn't need to be exactly an ABC. It could be a WXY. It could end up developing as a triangle to the sideways. Also a realistic possibility. And we also have the green interpretation, which allows really for a reset here within the wave B. And in that case, this could be seen something like a WXY pattern that could be developing in this area, and we could see a reset. Okay, but we first need to actually break above this top to consider that this is actually going to happen. And for now, we are mostly exploring the possibility of the two different interpretations in this area. I am not necessarily tracking a direct breakout just yet. I am waiting at least for the next wave up, for that to be something more of a focus, and if this comes, then we can explore that idea. But at this point, as long as we stay below this wave B top, I am focused mostly on the downside. Now remember, even if we manage to break above this wave B top, it could be a reset of the wave B, and we do have a general resistance area for this interpretation. It goes all the way up to the $81 level, but for now, pressure is still down, and unfortunately in the last couple of days we have been breaking the support here in the shorter time frame for the possibility of a clear count, a clear structure that would allow a more direct breakout. Now it's not completely invalidated, not completely impossible just yet, but since we failed to hold here the support zone that I have provided you for a wave 4, we cannot really explore at this point the possibility of something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to have an initial smaller time frame 5-wave structure, where we could have afterwards looked for something like a 1-2 setup. That would have been an interesting entry if the opportunity was given. But now all we can really track to the upside is the idea of a double 1-2 1-2 setup. And don't get me wrong, it could work, but right now I am favoring the idea that in the blue scenario that we had instead formed a simple ABC structure, and that we may be in the next leg down. Now that could be either part of the green interpretation, where we get a larger ABC structure. This is, after all, what we have been mainly tracking anyway, since we formed what does look a lot like a 5-wave structure in this area. So yeah, this was a high probability, but we managed to break above the 78.6% retracement, which is actually a second time for this chart. We did previously do that also here in this wave 2, but yeah, then it still failed afterwards, and we have a pretty good chance of doing this once again. Yeah, we broke above the 78.6% retracement, and now we are going down once again. It seems that this chart generally likes to retrace a bit deeper into its corrections, at least to the upside, which is not a bad sign for the chart. It is actually quite bullish. It is preferred that a chart does show this strength, but right now it doesn't necessarily show us the clarity that we would like, and it does suggest that we should still stay a bit more on the sidelines and wait for a more clear pattern. Now, within this structure, if this really ends up being just a correction, I would still count an A, B, C possible to develop in this area. It doesn't need to be within what we have here in the orange interpretation, that it would be a third wave down, okay? So within this structure, I would be looking for an ideal target to the downside for a wave C, the 100% extension of the wave A, which is around the $37 level, which also is in confluence with the 61.8% retracement here in the green support zone. That would still allow for a C wave to the upside, resetting here this wave B top most likely. Now let's even add here an account, not this one, no, actually that one. So here an A, B, C, that would be part of the larger wave B in green, and in this case we can make it a minuscule count. And what else can we look for? Well, we really have only this area in the shorter time frame. If this ends up being an ABC pattern, I suppose it is possible to develop the larger wave C to the upside in an ending diagonal. Not an issue, but it does seem to be a bit out of proportions. And I suppose the other thing that I would consider is maybe the possibility of a 1-2-1-2 setup, and this is what I will personally mostly focus on. But keep in mind, this isn't necessarily the highest probability interpretation. It is an idea we could be tracking for a direct breakout, but we are still in this support zone, which could allow for a 1-2 setup in this area, but it must hold the 78.6% retracement to have any realistic probabilities of this actually working out. And let's use the yellow interpretation, I suppose, for this idea. And if we break below the 78.6% retracement, the $47 level, I would be pretty heavily inclined to believe that we are in a large wave C to the downside in the green scenario. I am preferring that at this point anyway. But I am still exploring different options, different opportunities that could be considered. After all, we are at the bottom of the support zone, and an entry in this area with a relatively tight stop loss isn't necessarily the worst idea in the world. Here we do have, after all, we could consider that this is something like an ABC pattern, but we do need to keep in mind and be aware that within this wave C to the downside, we pretty much reached the 138.2% extension, not quite, but very close. And that is a sign that this could be instead something like a 1-2-3 that could be developing really in this area. Now, I wouldn't necessarily bet on this being a third wave down, unless we would be tracking an overall diagonal structure to the downside. But in this structure, I do believe it does look better with it being an ending diagonal. So I am exploring the idea of something like an ABC pattern in this area. However, even within this wave C, I do still prefer an additional low before considering this count actually complete, where let's even add here something like this. And within this idea in the wave C, we could have bottomed, okay? It isn't impossible. I'm never excluding these possibilities because the market can always do whatever it wants, but I am considering that this could be a 1-2-3, and here we are in a fourth, and then a fifth could still come to the downside, and could easily take us to the 78.6% retracement. Now, in such a retracement, I would expect to hold below at least the 61.8% retracement, because yeah, it is in a diagonal structure, and in this case we are looking at the general resistance area between the $49 level all the way up to the $52 level. Now, other interpretations could maybe still work out. I just prefer this idea based on the actual size of this fifth wave. It could still be something like a 1, 2, 1, 2. This could be a third wave down. Here we would get a fourth and then a fifth. But as a general area, if we manage to break above the 61.8% retracement, it would be a first sign that we may have somewhat of a bottom in this area. But keep in mind, even within a diagonal structure that could be developing within this wave C, this could end up being just an A wave down. We could get something like a B wave up, a C wave down. This would end up being a 1, 2, 3. And in that case, we might get a fourth and a fifth to complete this correction in wave C. So overall, I believe it is at this point best to wait a little longer on the sidelines. Maybe a small position isn't necessarily, again, the worst idea at the bottom of this area of support where we are at this point. But yeah, keep in mind there is still significant risk that we would break lower afterwards. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.